Well, joining me now here in the studio, we have former Pentagon Deputy Press Secretary Sabrina Singh. That was news to me, what she just reported, that Vladimir Zelensky is not sticking around for the meetings. It's not a meeting with Donald Trump. That I might not expect 10 days after the blow-up in the Oval Office. What can be accomplished without Vladimir Zelensky at the table?
You know, maybe it's a good thing. We still, I think, need some cooler heads to prevail. And so you have each other's counterparts there to engage and kind of get into the substance of whatever this so-called ceasefire to a peace deal looks like. I think that's OK. And at the end of the day, because Donald Trump is not there at those talks, I don't think it necessarily makes sense for Zelensky to be part of those talks. But, you know, people like the Minister of Defense, like Umerov and others, are probably sitting in those meetings alongside the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio.
So it's my understanding as well that Mohammed bin Salman, that he's not going to be part of the meetings between the United States and Ukraine at whatever level. So the fact that Vladimir Zelensky speaks to Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince, what is it? I mean, you worry a little bit about, like, you know, coconut, like, OK, you've told him something and then he's going to pass it on. Is that how that's going to work?
Yeah, I think you always have to be worried about a little bit about that game of telephone. I think also Zelensky is being smart and understands that this is a partner and a relationship that the United States has. And so that, you know, he can express his views and concerns. And there is a go between the United States and the Ukrainians, even though, you know, I think it's still important that the United States and Ukraine are meeting at the table. And that is a good thing. We do want to see that relationship move forward, that dust up in the Oval Office. I mean, I think we talked after that. I mean, that was quite astonishing for the world to see. It's now time to chart a new way forward.
Okay. By the way, you called it telephone. I called it coconut. It's kind of the West Coast girl in me. All right. Let's. I want to go to something that NBC News has reported. In addition to signing this mineral deal to restart and continue with the intelligence sharing, restart the military aid, Trump wants Ukraine to give up territory that Russia has taken in this war and hold a new presidential election. He basically wants Vladimir Zelensky to step down as president. Trump has said that Ukraine has no choice but to make a peace deal with Russia. What does that mean for Ukraine right now, then? And what do you expect to come from these talks?
Well, I think the reality is for the Trump administration is that Ukraine absolutely has a choice. It's their sovereign territory that we're talking about. The unfortunate thing here is that Donald Trump is negotiating basically on behalf of Russia, saying that Ukraine should hold elections in Ukraine. I mean, 20% of the country is occupied by Russia. So how do you
hold? They have said we're not holding for this reason.
And that's in their constitution.
Correct.
So it's not that Zelensky doesn't want to hold elections. They literally can't. How would you even go about doing it? How would you have a fair and free election? And just ask Vladimir Putin about that. I mean, they have not seen one under Putin's reign in Russia. So I think it's really hard. And for Donald Trump to be saying, well, you know, Ukraine has to give up some of its territory. I mean, Russia invaded its sovereign neighbor. So, again, we're using Russian talking points here.
I want you to take a listen to some of what Congressman Seth Moulton told me yesterday when I asked about the new tariffs that Trump imposed on China and then Beijing's response that it could retaliate with a trade war or, quote, here's the quote, any other type of war. OK, listen to this.
The chances of war are going up dramatically with China. And I've seen this report from many analysts who are looking at the chances that Xi Jinping basically sees a green light from Putin for what Putin is getting from Trump in Europe and decides to invade Taiwan, something that could literally set off World War III. Even if the chances of a war over Taiwan are, you know, say 20%, that's a really bad chance of something catastrophic happening to the world, to our troops, to our economy.
Do you agree with that? Is Donald Trump poking a hornet's nest?
I think Donald Trump is poking a hornet's nest in that by catering and by allowing us to renege on some of our commitments to our allies and partners. I mean, look at him saying that we might not defend NATO countries if they don't spend what Donald Trump thinks they need to spend as part of the alliance. I think that is signaling to China that, you know, the United States might not be there for their partners and allies all around the world, and maybe we take advantage of this moment. And, you know, China is continuing to develop militarily and economically. They are the only country in the world right now that could really upend the international rules-based order. So I think it is really important that, you know, China is looking to the United States, looking at the rhetoric coming out of this administration, and probably making some calculations on its own, which you know, like Congressman Seth Moulton raised, that is something that we should really think about, and that, you know, should be a little scary to the system here.
Yeah, for sure. Sabrina Singh, it's good to have you here.
Thank you.
Thanks. See you again soon.